Do I start? Okay, just start talking now, right? Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Sorry about the slight delay this morning, but we're ready to go now. I want to welcome everybody to the 2022 community experience. And it has been an experience already this morning. So I'm hoping everybody is settling in. If you're in your office, at your home, or at one of our 5 regional host sites, welcome home. That's the theme of our conference this year: housing opportunities and meaningful employment. I am Tom Luettke. I am the president of the Ohio Association of Local Reentry Coalitions. And I want to give a selfless plug here that we host a statewide call every month on the 3rd Monday at 11 a.m. So please, if you haven't joined in the past, please consider joining in the future. I want to welcome all the participants that are at our 5 regional watch sites: Cincinnati, Columbus, Akron, Athens, and Toledo, and they're all in the room just down the hallway from me. So welcome to this community experience. We've been virtual the last 2 years due to the COVID pandemic. Our hope is next year we can double our host sites, because we are about the local connecting and collaborating. So we hope that the local sites have a lot of collaboration going on today to help solve the challenges and issues that we're dealing with as part of this conference. You might ask, who's in the community today? This year we have 178 virtual participants. We have 158 that are on site at the 5 regional sites. We also have individuals from 4 other states: Alaska, Arizona, North Carolina, and Texas. What we all have in common is that we care about men and women returning from incarceration, and we're looking for the best avenues to remove obstacles so they can be successful in our communities. I would be remiss if I did not thank our sponsors this year. We've had some gracious sponsors reach out and want to be a part of this conference. And this conference wouldn't be possible without these sponsors and friends of the community. Specifically, we would like to thank the West Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church as a convening sponsor. Without Reba and Jamie and her team, none of this would be happening today. I especially want to thank CareSource. We work very closely here in Northwest Ohio with CareSource. They are our hospitality sponsor at all 5 of our regional sites. Your lunch today is being provided by CareSource. So when you're connecting individuals with Medicaid services or healthcare services, remember to think of CareSource as a quality provider in our communities. The Hamilton County Office of Reentry, I wanted to thank for virtual screening of the documentary Apart, which will be tonight at 6:30. And I'm hoping many of you can join for that. And the Counseling Center in Portsmouth for their sponsorship of When Family is Home, Lunch and Learn Today. Many thanks to our friends of community as well. And I want to thank you all for the work you do every day on the ground in your local communities. Also, thank you to the planning team. We have an amazing planning team, and this doesn't happen overnight. We meet throughout the year. We debrief we'll be debriefing after this event at some point, and then we start planning for next year's event and bringing together all these speakers and making the regional watch sites, coordinating those. It takes a lot of work. So all of you that have helped in that planning, pat yourself on the back. You've done an amazing job. I wanted to pass along a few navigation tips for Whova. I know sometimes it can be challenging, especially if you're on a computer. To join a session, you go to the agenda on the app. The agenda section is at the bottom of the app. You click on agenda, then you go to the section of today's agenda where the time frame that we're at. Click on the green camera icon. And for the bridge building breakout sessions, you have to click on the sub-session link. That's going to be found on the right side of your screen. Click on the subsessions to view, and then select the session you want to join. You can filter by tracks under the agenda to see what's available online and also at the regional host sites. Sessions will be opening 2 minutes before their scheduled start times. To enter into a session, click on the green camera icon. To learn more about navigating Whova, go to the resources section to find Whova guides. Also check out the polls while you are there. To learn more about navigating Whova, go to the resources page. I just told you that. I don't know why I'm telling you that again. Look under community to find topics for discussion, meetups, and more. This is a great app. I've used it for 2 previous conferences this year, and it's phenomenal. Need help? Ask the organizer anything under community. That's your best option for when you have trouble using the app. Whatever else you think would be helpful on the app, feel free to post. Feel free to invite somebody to meet up. It's a great resource to have during this 2-day convening. Now, our why for gathering. So why are we all here and gathered for the next 2 days? And why are we focusing our attention and energy on moving the needle in the positive direction around safe, stable housing and meaningful employment? Throughout Ohio, and especially here in Northwest Ohio, we've done a lot of work with housing and employment. Now we're in an employment environment where the employers are coming to us. So now's an opportune time in our local communities to really take advantage of that and to connect individuals to meaningful employment where they can be self-sustaining in their own communities. Housing, you know, in Northwest Ohio, we have the money, we have vouchers, yet we're having a hard time connecting landlords. So we're going to talk a lot about housing today and share ideas and resources and talk about obstacles that we all face day in and day out and how we can best remove those obstacles. It's going to be a great 2 days. I thank you all for joining. And I also, we will be issuing certificates of participation at the host site. So if anybody does need that, remember to just ask for those. Now on to the introduction of Bishop Palmer. He's our one of our keynote speakers today. I'm going to invite resident bishop of the West Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church to bring us into community as people who are committed to loving our neighbors and helping our neighbors to achieve greatness in our communities. Bishop Gregory Vaughn Palmer has served as the Episcopal leader of the West Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church since 2012. He was born and reared in Philadelphia. Palmer is a child of the church, the son of the Reverend Herbert E. and Mrs. Charlotte Sue Hewitt Palmer. Palmer's father was a retired United Methodist pastor. His mother was a school teacher in the Philadelphia public school system. Bishop Palmer received his undergraduate degree from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and his Master of Divinity degree from Duke University Divinity School in Durham, North Carolina. He was ordained as a deacon and elected a probationary member in the Eastern Pennsylvania Annual Conference in 1977. In 1981, he was elected into full membership and ordained an elder in the East Ohio Annual Conference. Elected to the episcopacy by the North Central Jurisdictional Conference in 2000, Palmer served the Iowa area and Illinois area before returning to Ohio in 2012. Bishop Palmer served as president of the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry from 2004 to 2008, and president of the Council of Bishops from April of 2008 to May of 2010. He also is a board member of several organizations, including the United Methodist Publishing House, Methodist Theological School in Ohio, United Theological Seminary, and Ohio Health, a family of nonprofit hospitals and healthcare facilities. Under Bishop Palmer's residency in West Ohio, doing justice has come front and center as essential work of the church, including all-in community. West Ohio's criminal justice involved ministry. Bishop Palmer is the host of the Bishop's Leadership Clinics and the Unified Church podcast, where social justice and anti-racism approaches to ministry are explored and encouraged. Married for 44 years, that's wonderful, to his wife Cynthia. They are the parents of 2 adult children. Monica is a public school principal in Charlotte, North Carolina. Aaron is a senior project owner of an interactive technology company based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I want to invite you, Bishop, to address this great convening today and turn it over to you.
Thank you very much for the kind and thoughtful introduction. I was beginning to wonder who you were talking about, but thank you for sharing that and for your leadership today. It's always a privilege to be a part of this event and to interact and to partner with Reba Collins, whom all of you know for the good work that she's done and her emphasis here in West Ohio and with all of your organizations in the whole pattern of community and partnership. So thank you all for your participation. We're glad to be one of the sponsors of this event, to be hosting it at some of our sites, including here in the office building where I'm located. Friends, I think you have the right topic. I know I have said that and intimated that before, but the continuing focus on community, on together, on we, is absolutely important in our age. We are well past the time where individualism and a focus on I and me has run amok. And it is time that we turn the tide, as you are doing through this important work, particularly of working with those whose lives have been affected, changed, disrupted, and redeemed as a result of interactions with the justice system. I contend, as others have said, that every problem contains within it a solution. And every community, to extend that, remember, emphasis on community, already has all it needs to begin to work together to address its most intractable challenges. Being in community reminds us that none of us has to do it alone. Not any individual, not any organization, not any movement. It is in the coalescing of our energies, of our passions, of our skill set, of our knowledge, of our leverage points that we can actually address the most intractable challenges that we have in our society. And how to fully integrate into the life of the community brothers and sisters that are returning citizens is one of the challenges that we still face, and that all of you are deeply committed to making it happen and to doing it well. And we all understand that it cannot be done by any one of us. Just a few moments ago, you heard a long litany of the partnerships that bring an event like this together. And it is those continuing relationships between the private and the public sector, between not-for-profit, for-profit, government, and educational institutions that make it possible for us to see the community as whole. And when it comes to the work of fully embracing and integrating and receiving the gifts of returning citizens as a part of the life of the community, it suggests that there has been a mind shift and a change in the way we see things and in the way we see one another. We no longer view each other out of fear, see each other as stranger, or refer to one another as the other, or those people, or that group. Community reminds us that in our best moments and in our worst moments, that we will only move forward if we are seeing a life together. And a part of seeing a life together is the willingness to see all the people. A few years ago, a friend of mine created a new denominational kind of soundbite in the life of the United Methodist Church. I'm not trying to convert you, but I want to share this soundbite. The Reverend Dr. Junius Dotson, in his role as the Director of Discipleship Ministries for the United Methodist Church, said something like this: why don't we stop trying to fix churches and in turn see all the people? What he was saying to us in our institution was, stop fooling with the mechanics and the tactics of the institutional church and trying to fix them, and open our hearts and our eyes and our minds to all of the rich resource that all of us are together, no matter what has happened in our past, no matter what decisions we've made, whether or not we are incarcerated, whether or not we're returning citizen, whether or not we're part of a community that even sees themselves as having been victimized, or whether or not we're a family left behind. In order to be community, we must have new eyes, and we must choose to see one another as friends, as sisters, as brothers, as partners in building a life of flourishing community together. The goal of community is to move beyond our dysfunctions and to see that the possibilities for flourishing, for abundance, for wholeness, for meaning, and for a sense of ongoing purpose are possible if we see one another as beloved human beings, fully made, I would say, out of my bailiwick, in the image of God, no deficiencies and no shortcomings. You can buy into some aspect of that, even if you are not a person of religious conviction or faith, that all of us have been created and designed to live lives of abundance and flourishing. And we cannot do that except we do it in community. In community, we are embraced for who we are, and we are urged on to become the people that we can fully become. In community, we receive gifts and we offer our gifts to the community. No one comes into community without assets, without something to contribute. No one is deficient. All of us have something that somebody else, but most importantly, that the community needs in order for the community to be whole and to be flourishing and to experience an abundance of life. By flourishing and by abundance, I do not speak particularly of materiality or things that you can count, though those help us a lot in life. No, I speak of the abundance of the power of community and the relationships, and some of the outcomes may be material, tactile, quantifiable, etc. Let me give you two illustrations and I'll end before I get carried away. Communities see nothing but possibilities, even or especially in the face of challenges. You likely heard this narrative that I have labeled as a narrative of enoughness in one of the reporting news organs that talked about the recent hurricane, Fiona in this case, that put the lockdown again on Puerto Rico, only to be succeeded by what we have experienced in Hurricane Ian. In Puerto Rico, after Fiona had unleashed her rage, so to speak, the rage of wind and water, etc. One of the things that people looked around and saw, because it was near the harvesting time for avocados on the island of Puerto Rico, they saw all of these avocados that were laying on the ground that had been knocked from their tree limbs, but they were not yet gone to rot. They were still eatable. They were still usable. They were still could be put into recipes. And people began in baskets and sometimes holding them even in their own clothing or whatever they could carry, picking up the avocados and sharing them with their neighbors. Because in this time in which food insecurity was accentuated because of the lack of electricity and refrigeration and the like, these avocados could be a rich source from which people could make a part, at least, if not the whole, of a meal. And so they picked them up by the bushel baskets full, and they began to share them with their neighbors, because no one could use all of the avocados that they might have been able to even pick up from the fields or from their own yards where the avocado trees were. In the face of Hurricane Fiona, these folks whose lives had been disrupted, turned topsy-turvy again, saw in the midst of that crisis that we have enough. Listen to the words, we have enough. And each individual exercise their franchise in the we-ness in order to spread the gospel of enoughness so that all of their neighbors would have something to eat. They did it by sharing and by letting nothing go to waste. Now, the second story, and the final one is this, is about the eminent scientist, George Washington Carver, about whom there have been some wonderful new biographies that have come out in the last couple of years. His is a long story, and I don't have time to give you all of the background, but I just want to give you a snippet and then seize upon a phrase that is attributed to him. He went to college in Indianola, Iowa at Simpson College, and subsequently transferred to the Iowa State University, where they could really tease out of him his great capacity in biology and botany, etc. And you and I together know that there are still a number of patents for what he created out of soybeans, sweet potatoes, and peanuts that are still on the books here in the United States and around the world. But one of the things that he says about having been received with warmth, with hospitality, with generosity, and having held before him the possibilities of what he could be and who he could become, his background in a segregated society notwithstanding. He says of his experience of being taken in first at this small liberal arts college called Simpson College, just south of Des Moines, Iowa. He says, "It was here," and I quote now, "that I came to believe for the very first time that I really was a human being." Let me say that one more time. It was here at this college, in this community, that I came to believe for the very first time in my life that I really was a human being. What if our plumb line, our measure of flourishing community, is that everyone, their past, their present, and no limitations on their future notwithstanding, could always know, because of the power of the community around them, that they are fully a human being who was designed and created for community, and designed and created to flourish and to contribute. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. You're going to have some really good speakers the rest of the day. That said, it's my privilege now to tee things up for Ronette, referred to affectionately as Ronnie Burkes Trowsdell, who's employed with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction for 22 years. She has served in all sorts of roles as a part of the administrative infrastructure, as a victim advocate, as a deputy warden, as a regional director, and currently as the deputy director of the department in the Office of Reentry. It has been apparent throughout her career that her inner drive is fueled by her passion for people, and may I add to her resume, for their possibilities in community. Ronnie's compassion can be seen in her interactions with team members, justice-involved individuals, and crime survivors on any given day. And her love for people is not contained within the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. Her community service with the Harmony Project in Columbus and her dedication for the last 32 years to the service work of her sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, gives you an understanding of Ronnie's driving force. And that force is to save lives. She has been recognized by faith communities, including her own, receiving awards for her humanitarian service driven by her passion and by her own faith. And the list of awards are too numerous to delineate here. She currently serves as the immediate past president for the Ohio Wardens and Superintendents Association. And additionally, she is known by her peers and those whom she serves for her ability to engage people, improve the lives of others, and to do so while honoring the dignity and respect of all. Ronnie believes the work she does is ordained by God, and she can be heard saying on a regular basis, we are in the business of saving lives. She has continued to prepare for her work and is a lifelong learner, but has distinguished herself with degrees from the University of Akron, as well as Tiffin University. She is also a graduate of the Ohio Certified Public Manager Program through the John Glenn Institute at The Ohio State University, earning her CPE. Would you welcome and receive the message that Ronnie brings us this morning?
Good morning, and Bishop, I just have to say to you, thank you so very much. Bishop Palmer, it is a pleasure to see you again this year and to hear you speak. You always leave us with nuggets of wisdom, and I appreciate the commitment that you have. I appreciate the love that you have. I appreciate the way you make us feel about the work we do in reentry and how important it is, but also the way you make our men and women feel who are returning back to our communities, letting them know that they matter, that they're human beings, as you said. And Bishop, we could not have had a better person to open us up. So Bishop, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your continued leadership. And Bishop, I have to say this, you remind me so much of my bishop, who I love, Bishop Timothy Clark. So thank you again for just being here, and thank you for joining us in this journey of saving lives.
Thank you. Have a great time today.
Thank you. Good morning, Building Bridges. I am so excited to be here today virtually with you all. I know some of you all are in person, but I'm excited to be here today. It's my pleasure not only to be here to welcome you today, to serve as a facilitator, as a presenter, but also to learn from you today. So I'm excited about the various workshops that we have where we will join in community and share and learn together. I am here on behalf of my director, Annette Chambers-Smith, who could not be here. It's unfortunate that she could not join us this year, but if she were here, she would want you to know a few things that I'm going to share with you. Building Bridges, ODRC is working hard for Ohioans. And so I want to share with you a little bit about what we've been doing this past year. As many of you know, approximately 20,000 men and women are released from our institutions and return to communities here in Ohio from a period of incarceration. Prior to returning home, we offer opportunities for our incarcerated persons to improve their lives, to increase their success. We offer opportunities for them to be prepared to come home. We don't do this alone. because you heard the bishop talk about community and how important community is. And so we could not and do not ever proclaim of doing this alone. And so we are excited about the work that our community partners do as well to help us with this. We offer innovative educational and employment opportunities, such as this year, we rolled out Chromebooks to all of our institutions. We're actually currently still doing that. Which has a Reentry Academy on it. It's an opportunity for our men and women to learn and engage in educational modules that focus on reentry and going home. So they actually have access to Chromebooks in our facilities, in our libraries, in the dorms, where they can work on reentry modules. And we're excited about the work that Linnell Wainwright and her team has been doing with that. We offer accredited college programs at every institution across the state of Ohio. So we have partnerships with many colleges across the state, to include Sinclair College, Ashland University, and we're proud of these partnerships that we have with them and many others. And we offer an opportunity for higher education learning in even our higher security facilities, which is so important. We have over 50 career technical opportunities to include welding and plumbing and barbering and cosmetology, computer aided graphics, web design, and many, many others in our institutions. These are all directly connected to employment and having an opportunity to go home with skills that a person did not have prior to coming in. We have wonderful programs by our unit staff in our facility that are evidence-based programming, such as Thinking for a Change and Decision Points. We have additional programs offered by many of our collaborative partners who are on here today, such as the Ridge Project, Damascus, Reach Success. We're excited about the work that they're doing with Chase Bank inside of our facilities. Yes, Chase Bank is coming into the prisons to teach the men and women about financial independency, which is so important. Under the leadership of our Workforce Development Administrator, Vernice Robinson, who I know is here today, we have enterprise development partnerships where our currently incarcerated persons are actually leaving the institutions every single day. They're working in our communities with civilians, next to civilian staff, and they're earning a livable wage. They're earning at least a minimum wage, but they're earning a livable wage, and they have an opportunity to be able to save this money to prepare for going home. I recall Vernice sending me a picture of a young lady at one of our facilities at Northeast Reintegration Center in Cleveland. And this young lady had received her first paycheck. She's working at Diamond Meadows in the Cleveland area, and she received her first paycheck. And the look of not only shock at the amount of money that she made while incarcerated, but also the look of pride in her face that she had actually accomplished this. And she can go on and save this money so that when she comes home, she will have a sustainable savings account ready to prepare her for all the challenges that we know reentry brings. And so Vernice is just doing a tremendous job in that area with her team. Building bridges, I hope that you hear this message that ODRC and our community partners are working hard for Ohioans. We are focused continuously on increasing access and resources. The Office of Reentry partnered with Relink a few years ago before our pandemic to create additional avenues for our men and women to actively engage in the reentry planning. Now, all our incarcerated adults can have access to relink.org. That's relink.org on their new ViaPath tablets, giving them access to resources across the state of Ohio, where they can actively go on relink.org, look for opportunities for housing, look for opportunities for treatment, look for opportunities for substance misuse treatment, look for opportunities for employment. And they can talk to their case managers about the things that they found and the interests that they have, which is really, really important. We are hoping that this will allow our men and women to be more independent in participating in their reentry planning. ODRC awarded a total of $1 million to 16 agencies to expand reentry coalitions across the state of Ohio this year, increasing our coverage to 50 counties. We're excited about this. This is the first time that we've been able to offer anything to reentry coalitions, any type of financial support to our reentry coalitions. And our reentry coalitions in the state, they need it. They need funding. And so we need to be supportive of those. And I know a lot of those folks are in here today. I saw Donna Gibson from Licking County and Sean Stover from Athens County. We are proud to partner with those folks as well. The Office of Reentry is working with an executive leadership team within our agency and community partners in our state to address the issue of housing barriers. That's why we're here today, to talk about these housing barriers. And so we're working with that. Our director's so committed to it, she appointed a new reentry administrator who will focus specifically on housing, Linnea McDonald, and I think she's here today. She'll focus on not only housing barriers and building relationships with our housing providers across our state, but she will also focus on helping to support reentry coalitions, helping to support citizen circles, helping to educate our community about and understanding the importance of CQEs. And we're excited about that. We're excited that our director understands reentry and believes in reentry and knows the needs that we have in our state enough to appoint someone to do this work as well. Our reentry coordinators are partnering with our reentry alliances across the state and other organizations to educate our community about CQEs and hosting CQE clinics and workshops and sessions across the state. These are an efforts to educate and engage justice-involved individuals and collaborative partners with the importance of CQEs and what they do for folks. So you all, Building Bridges, I hope that you know, I hope you hear this message that ODRC and our collaborative partners are working hard for Ohioans. What I'm trying to convey to you is that we're working hard to live up to our mission of reducing recidivism among those who we touch. We're working hard to live up to our vision of reducing crime in Ohio. We are also working to ensure that our 4 core values are embedded in everything we do within this agency. Take care of our staff and they'll transform our offenders. If we pour into our staff the resources that they need, the support that they need, if we treat them the way they should be treated, they will then in turn treat the men and women that we serve every single day the way they should be treated. One team, one purpose. We are all one team. We are all one community, Bishop. And so if we act as one community, as we act as one team, and we understand our mission, if we understand the purpose that we're here for today, we can be successful. Civility toward all. It does not matter your role in our agency. It does not matter your position within our agency. It does not matter your title in our agency, whether you are an incarcerated adult, whether you are a staff member, whether you're a volunteer or someone or a community partner. It is important that we are civil toward everyone. And the last core value of our agency, and probably the most important one, I'll say, is that hope is job one. We are here to instill hope in the men and women that we serve. For the next 2 days, we have a great opportunity for us to build bridges with each other, to connect with each other. And many of us are doing this virtually. I see about 74 folks on here today. We have another several hundred folks that are in the community building bridges. But nonetheless, regardless of where we are, we can all build bridges. So I ask that you join me for the next 2 days in building a bridge with pillars of connections, pillars of relationships, pillars of collaboration, pillars of experience. Build a bridge with pillars of knowledge and sincerity and transparency, understanding, openness. And most of all, join me in building pillars of hope, because it's these pillars that hold up the bridges that we are building. And remember, hope is job one. I thank you today for having me, and I'm so excited about the next 2 days and all the wonderful things that the wonderful committee and the hardworking committee has planned for you all. Tom said it earlier, and Bishop also said it as well. And I can't end without saying thank you to our partners who have made this day possible, and especially thank you to Reba Collins, who always works so hard to ensure that we have building bridges of opportunities and we get to have this community experience every year. Next, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for this morning. I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing her. And I'll tell you, I had a chance this morning prior to this event starting to just chat with our regional administrator, Diane Shelley. And so she is just a woman, I could tell immediately, a woman of connections, because she began to talk to me and talk a little bit about the work that we do and said, I need to connect you to some folks. So she gets what our mission is here today, and she knows what the next 2 days are about. So I'm excited to share with you that Regional Administrator Diane M. Shelley is a retired Illinois judge and was appointed by President Joe Biden to serve as the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Midwest Regional Administrator. Based in Chicago, she oversees HUD's 6-state Midwest region, which includes Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Regional Administrator Shelley is the regional liaison to elected officials, congressional delegates, associations, and stakeholders. As a lifelong social justice advocate working to eliminate poverty and economic insecurity, Shelley joined HUD with a long record of public service, including 15 years as an elected state court judge and practiced as an attorney for nearly 25 years. She began her legal career providing aid to farmers, migrants, and low-income rural families, and went on to head litigation for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. Prior to her legal career, she worked with grassroots nonprofit organizations on issues of housing and food insecurities and social justice. A Chicago native with roots in the city's Bronzeville neighborhood, Shelley remains a dedicated member of the bar and civic associations, having received numerous awards for helping others gain equality and justice. Again, I am so excited to have Regional Administrator Shelley here. I'm excited to have members of her team in the audience listening in. And I'm excited, Regional Administrator Shelley, even more to know that you have started to make connections for me. And I will be working with some of your folks to continue to do the things we need to do to ensure that men and women returning from incarceration have equal access and fair access to housing. And I appreciate you, and I look forward to the message that you bring to us this morning. I give to you Regional Administrator Diane M. Shelley.
Good morning, and I want to thank you for that kind introduction, Mrs. Burkes Trowsdell. Your words were very warm, and I look forward to an ongoing relationship. I want to thank Mr. Luettke for including me in this conversation. And Bishop Palmer, thank you for your wonderful spiritual opening statement. As you pointed out, meaningful spirituality is not about you individually, but it's about the inner spirit and the faith that connects you with others. Again, thank you for inviting me to join you here today to connect on the issue of treatment of persons who have been incarcerated or had contact with the legal system. At HUD, we understand that when we invest in housing, we are investing in people. I am overjoyed to be part of HUD and to be able to work with professionals like you to help provide a human right, housing for all. I bring you greetings from the Secretary of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Honorable Marcia L. Fudge. and from the Biden-Harris administration. As was stated, I am a political appointee of the Biden-Harris administration assigned to assist Secretary Fudge in carrying the message of the agency and developing relationships in furtherance of HUD's mission. It was pointed out that I oversee 6 states: Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the great state of Ohio. I'd like to take just a quick moment to recognize HUD's Ohio-based leadership team. Mr. Anthony Forte is the field office director for the southern portion of Ohio and is stationed at our Columbus office. And Mrs. Pamela Ashby is the field office director for the northern part of the state and is stationed in Cleveland. I know that they and other HUD employees are joining us today. These HUD employees work very hard on the ground in Ohio with local groups and organizations. I want to publicly thank them, and I encourage you to contact our field office directors. Now, HUD's mission is to provide safe, decent, affordable housing for all in need. Everyone deserves a stable home from which to build or rebuild their lives. Having stable housing determines your chances of finding employment, having access to food, education, childcare. Having housing affects your hopes, future, and even the air you breathe. Re-entering persons face almost unsurmountable difficulties in finding and securing stable housing. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you are doing in this area. HUD agrees with you that a person's conviction history should not unfairly exclude them from access to stable housing. Now, I want to correct a misrepresentation that has been floating around, that HUD's regulations bars persons with criminal background from HUD-financed housing. That is incorrect, and HUD is actively working to correct that myth, and I will discuss it further. Now, we know that it's people of color, specifically Black and Latino people, people with disabilities, typically mental health disorders, poor people, and those who are undereducated that are disproportionately represented in our jail and prison. They are denied stable housing upon returning, which compounds the challenges they are facing. They are often victimized over and over again, and that is why we are having this conversation today. At a recent event, a returning citizen told the story of being raised by parents who abused drugs and neglected him. At age 13, he had no family support system. He was on his own. He made his way through the streets, surviving as he could and committing criminal acts, not because he was a bad person, but because he had no other choice. He was not the cause of his contact with the criminal justice system. He was a victim of circumstances. He was incarcerated and then released back into the same environment. He acquired a menial job that paid less than others because of his criminal background. But he also could not find housing. There were, of course, your slum landlords who would take his money, take his paycheck, and rent him an apartment without heat or with infestation that was so bad that he was afraid to turn off the lights. When he complained, they just changed the locks and kept his personal items that he had accumulated, because where was he going to complain? He was victimized repeatedly by the system. I do want you to know that he was able to connect with one of our local groups in Chicago, and he is getting the support that's needed. Your coalition is similar in nature. You are giving those returning second chances, and we must fight for those second chances. Many landlords have unnecessarily stringent criminal background screening in their tenant selection practices. Many public housing authorities and even HUD-assisted housing owners are denying subsidized housing opportunities to this group of people that desperately need housing in order to avoid homelessness and recidivism. Now, we know that housing can not only lead to reducing recidivism, but housing assistance, especially when coupled with social services, is often cheaper than incarceration. The myth is that this population poses a threat to communities. However, denying housing to people involved in the criminal justice system has not been shown to increase public safety. In fact, as stated, research has shown that the lack of stable housing can contribute to recidivism, whereas stable housing has been shown to reduce people's recidivism. We understand that ensuring the safety of tenants is a legitimate end for housing providers, and HUD cares deeply about the safety of the tenants in its programs. But I repeat that there is little evidence that excluding most people with criminal records from HUD-assisted housing contributes to public safety. In fact, research indicates that criminal history is a poor predictor of a person's success as a renter or tenant. What exclusion from housing assistance does do is contribute to a higher rate of homelessness. Secretary Fudge has directed all HUD leadership to conduct a comprehensive review of HUD regulations, guidance, and policy documents that even mention the use of criminal records in tenant screening, selection, and tenancy decisions. This review is to be completed shortly and aims to propose changes to language that some housing providers rely upon and incorrectly interpret to deny or exclude people who are returning from assisted housing. Secretary Fudge and the Biden-Harris administration have been on the front line in addressing this inequity in providing stable housing. The CARES Act that expanded access for formerly incarcerated people to HUD's unhoused programs and extended during the COVID-19 pandemic is one example. HUD's use of statutory authority under the American Rescue Plan issued 70,000 emergency housing vouchers, allowing them to be used to serve formerly incarcerated people who were unhoused or at risk of being unhoused, and to serve individuals struggling with drug addictions. Together at HUD, with your help, we are empowered and focused on housing and community development with a dedication to equity, inclusive communities, and quality affordable homes for all. I would like to take just 1 second to highlight some of the initiatives that the Biden administration and Secretary Fudge are leading. We have a House America program where we are seeking to rehouse at least 100,000 homeless people and add at least 20,000 new housing units into the development pipeline. The House America initiative was in follow-up to the historic housing resources provided by the American Rescue Plan. We have over 103 communities that have joined, including 15 here in the Midwest. Together, they have already rehoused approximately 62,000 households. I also want to just take a moment and talk about Our Way Home. It's another initiative by the administration. Right now, across this country, nearly 2 million people live in public housing. 11 million families pay more than half their income on rent, and 3 million families with children under 6 resides in homes with lead paint. Thousands of working families are displaced every year because of extreme weather conditions. As was mentioned by the bishop, the recent catastrophes in Puerto Rico and some of our other communities. Well, the Housing Supply Action Plan is geared to help closing that housing gap. It builds on the steps to create and rehabilitate 100,000 homes over the next 3 years and aims to ease the burden of housing costs. I just want to talk a little more about economic and climate justice. We must not forget that economic justice is equally important, and we must advance the ability for renters to build assets. Income alone does not create financial stability. I'm glad to announce that HUD has launched a new program called Bridging the Wealth Gap. We see this as the springboard for people who are renting to develop equity that they can use towards home ownership. There are other programs that the administration is involved in, but in conclusion, I want to ask you to work with HUD, to partner with us. Although we are a funding agency, it's you, your organizations, the not-for-profits, the churches who actually are on the ground, making sure these resources reach the people they are intended for. HUD is a partner with you in this and acting with you on this shared mission. I look forward to collaborating with you and seeing partners like you put the many resources to work to meet the needs of some of our most vulnerable residents and lift up our communities across Ohio and throughout the region. For more information on HUD's efforts, please follow us on Twitter at HUD Midwest, or go to our website at www.hud.gov. Again, I would like to thank the people that have convened this wonderful session. And again, Godspeed to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Regional Administrator Shelley, for your wonderful words. I jotted down a lot of notes and things that you said, but I will be completely transparent and tell you that myself and one of my team members were already texting each other about connecting with your team. And so we really appreciate you, and we are excited to hear about the things that HUD is doing to help us on this mission. So, as you know, reentry is a local community issue. Housing is one of the primary external barriers for people coming home to successfully reintegrate back into our communities. Safe, stable, and I always say respectful housing also creates safer communities. And I know that the state agency that I represent can only do so much, as I'm sure on the federal level. Your agency can't do it all either, yet we all have important roles to play in the safe return of our men and women back to our communities. So my question is, can you provide a general overview of HUD's role at the local level for increasing safe and stable housing opportunities?
Again, thank you for the opportunity to address your audience. HUD has more than 65 field offices across the nation, as well as 10 regional offices and program office teams in place to serve local communities, including HUD-assisted residents, HUD grantees, and others. We are available to answer any and all questions and refer you to housing advocacy and support organizations. HUD funds housing counseling services throughout Ohio. These counseling services are qualified, or I should say certified by HUD to act as our on-the-ground representative. You can contact our local field offices in your area, and they can give you a list of the qualified housing services in your area. Also, what we do is we share stories, success stories from some of our partners, because we believe we learn from each other. So when we recognize a program that has been effective, we uplift that program and we try to spread the word. I don't want to take up too much time, but there are other programs that we have available that are not necessarily confined by four walls and a roof. We have what's called our Community Development Block Grant Program, which is more social services oriented. Our secretary often says that a house or a home is not four walls and a roof. It's much more than that. So we do have grant programs that have wraparound services to help people that are trying to have a meaningful and quality transition back into society.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Regional Administrator Shelley. I too, like Ronnie, am very excited. In fact, we've already begun some communications with the Ohio Field Office and look forward to building a great relationship with them. I wanted to follow up on Ronnie's question. Where do you see opportunities for HUD to move the needle in a positive direction that would open up more housing opportunities for returning citizens who would be our neighbors?
I hate to be redundant, but as I stated earlier, there are public housing authorities that are under the misconception that HUD bars returning citizens or people from felony from having housing in our developments. That is untrue. Recently, I spoke to a group of public housing authorities and I reiterated that, but our secretary has gone one step further. Last year, we published an interim final rule that required every local government that accepts federal housing dollars to certify compliance on affirmatively furthering fair housing. We view the rehousing of persons who are reentering society as a fair housing issue. And we're not saying that please do what is correct. We're asking these housing authorities, and all due respect to the housing authorities, they do a lot of great work. They are our partners and we're here to work with them. But you must affirmatively state that you have taken, that you are complying with the Fair Housing Act.
Thank you.
And,
oh, go ahead.
well, I also wanted to add that those that feel that they have been a victim of discrimination based on their status, they can contact us. We do have intake workers that will have an initial discussion with you to see whether or not it's something that would fall under our protection.
Yeah, in Northwest Ohio, we have I'm on the board, in fact, of the Toledo Fair Housing Center. So some great opportunities there. And I just want to give a plug for our housing authority, who has been amazing with reentry.
Yes, my field office directors there have told me about some of the great programs that are taking place in the state of Ohio. And I think I have to attribute that to the work of this coalition here.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you. I do appreciate Regional Administrator Shelley. I really do appreciate you just reiterating the point about HUD not barring folks based on their criminal histories, because I do believe that that myth is out there. And so I really appreciate you saying that several times today. And I think that will help us in this field when we're working toward helping men and women find safe and supportive and respectful housing. So you talked about HUD and the things that HUD has done and these wonderful programs. And I feel like I need to get on your website and get on your Twitter and really dive into it more. But I want to ask you, what do you need from us at the state and local level to help your agency move that needle? Because we want to be partners in this with you, and we want to make sure that we're doing our part. And today is all about community and working together. So what can we do to help you?
Well, I do want you to know, and I know that this is a spiritual group that I'm speaking to, and I do want you to know that we have a faith-based initiative within HUD, and I would encourage you to reach out to our faith-based initiative. They work with a lot of, church groups within the community. And their focus is often on some of the smaller groups that may not have access to the information. So that's one thing I would ask that this group consider, just investigating what we offer through that initiative. Also, we need you to apply to the extent that you are related or connected to a not-for-profit organization or a housing organization. There are a lot of notices of funding opportunities that have been issued by the Biden-Harris administration. And we want you to apply for funds and use those funds. As HUD, we are just the funding arm. You do the actual work. I want to highlight that under the Inflation Reduction Act, over $1 billion were set aside just for housing issues that concern environmental issues. A lot of our communities, and I think Mr. Luettke mentioned this, you have the vouchers, but you don't have the housing, you know. And I'll talk about landlord outreach shortly, but it's just a lack of supply. So with this money, we can talk about retrofitting some of our older houses in our communities where we can rehabilitate them and make them livable again. And hopefully those homes will then become homes that are available for the use of the vouchers or for the use of people that are returning to our communities. But we have to increase the housing supply. That is a challenge throughout the country and especially here in the Midwest.
Great, thank you. I wanted to change directions a little bit. In June of 2021, I remember Secretary Fudge, she outlined several actions that were underway to address reentry housing needs and increase public safety. One of these efforts was to provide 70,000 vouchers, housing choice vouchers, and be clear, she wanted to be clear that people returning from prison and jail were eligible for these vouchers. Our experiences in the community, though, is that there are still several barriers for landlords, as you just mentioned, in wanting to accept vouchers. We find that the landlords are not all that fearful of being held accountable when they, turn down someone that does have a voucher, oftentimes pointing to their criminal history as the reason. What is HUD's role in holding the landlords accountable when the money's there and they just turn the person away?
Well, economic instability or a source of income is not a basis for denial, and it is covered by the Fair Housing Act. So if someone decides that I just will not rent to people who have vouchers, then again, and you're very familiar with the Fair Housing Act, that's something that I would ask that you bring to our office's attention. We do have attorneys, staff attorneys that do the initial intake, and they will review such inquiries or referrals. But you cannot take a position that I will not rent to certain people. There has to be some non-discriminatory reason for not renting to a particular individual. Now, what we've also done on a practical side, and we understand that a lot of our landlords are just like us. They're just trying to make a living. They're trying to get from day to day. So what we've done is tried to create incentives. With the public housing authorities, with the increase in vouchers, we've also attached on to each voucher that was issued a $750 administrative fee. Because we're saying, okay, there's a cost that you incur in trying to place our citizens. And we're going to give you this incentive. We're giving you an extra $750 per voucher. We would ask that they use that $750 to increase the opportunities by doing landlord outreach, where you're going to the landlords and you're talking to them and you're educating them. Some of our communities have even set up liaisons or community outreach workers that work directly with landlords, that when you have a problem with the tenant, come to us, we will intervene. They also work with the tenant in saying, this is what you need to do once you obtain housing, because this needs to work for everyone. Rehousing people builds strong communities. There's this story, and I don't want to take over the program, but there's this story about a gentleman who returned home to the family home. Everyone had passed away but the mother, and the mother was very ill. He had only been there a couple of weeks, and the mother went into cardiac arrest. Because this person had returned home, there had been family reunification. He was able to call the ambulance and get the mother to the hospital. Had he not been in that home, the mother probably would not have made it. So those are the kind of things that we have to kind of spread throughout the community, let them know the benefit of having people in their home. And I'll talk about family, the importance of family reunification later. But that's a classic example of what we can do or what will happen when people return home.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to move to a question Michelle Mixon has in the audience. She indicated she had spoke to HUD staff about reentry housing opportunities for returning citizens, but they had no idea what she was talking about. She's from the Youngstown area. Is there a point person that we can refer people to in the Cleveland office?
Well, I'm going to put Mrs. Ashby, ASHBY, is the field office director. And I know that she is extremely active in reentry, in the reentry community. So I apologize if that information was not made available, but if you would reach out again, and Mr. Luettke, if you have contact information for that person, I will forward it on to Mrs. Ashby.
Great. Yeah, we'll get her information through us. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that you talked a little bit earlier about holding landlords or housing providers accountable. And I wanted to know from you, because we do see it quite a bit. And unfortunately, I think oftentimes we don't know what our role is in holding them accountable. And so how can state and local reentry agencies work with HUD to hold those housing providers accountable to follow the policies and regulations better? What do you need from us? What can we do on the local level? Because we see it with the men and women that we work with on a regular basis.
Well, I think we have to take the soft touch approach initially, and that is trying to educate them. Today, I just kind of highlighted some of the myths and the misstatements that float around in the community. A lot of people believe, oh, it will increase crime in my neighborhood, but there's no statistics to support that. Those are all myths. And what we need from you on the ground is to hold those landlords' hands and let them know that it will be okay and that you will be there for them when problems arise. You'll walk them through this process. Holding landlord engagement conferences is always a positive thing, because you can also highlight the security of having someone on the property that's getting a voucher. You're getting guaranteed income. During the pandemic, a lot of our landlords were very pleased to know that their base rents were not contingent on the employment of the individual, because the stability was guaranteed by the federal government. And we continue to send checks out all during the pandemic. And a lot of landlords were really very comfortable with that arrangement. And that's a way of enticing people into the system. And also, if you have a landlord that's really connected with the community, it's about community building. What do they want their community to look like in, years from now? Do they want to help develop it, or are they just there to get the monthly rents and then run away?
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you saying that as well, because I think that that's great information for us to consider. We've talked a lot about doing some education with housing providers about the men and women that we serve, and adding in that piece about the housing piece, I think, and the myths would be really, really important too. So we even had one recommendation from a housing provider that asked us if we would consider taking some of our housing providers on tours of our facilities so they can see the realness of the people that we serve, that they're human beings, that they're normal people. So I appreciate what you said. Thank you.
Oh, what a great idea, because they're just like you and I, but for the grace of God. And they're trying to rebuild their lives. And they're just asking for an opportunity. And once they get that opportunity, there's so many stories of how they contributed back once given that opportunity.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. You know, in Toledo here, we've done quite a bit of listening to our landlords as well. And we do hear back, and we talk very off the record with them. One thing they report is the annual inspections that come with the housing choice vouchers can be very onus on them. A lot of nitpicking, small little items that necessarily don't impact the health or safety of the individual in the unit, but become costly factors for a landlord to fix. And we hear that that's sometimes one reason they don't take the voucher. What can HUD, what role does HUD play in changing these type of policies or these type of views from the landlords?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because HUD, it's our goal to ensure that voucher holders are entering safe homes, and we do inspect them, but we are in the process of updating physical condition standards that include enhanced health and safety standards that will probably make it easier for the landlord. HUD performed inspections using the new standards since June 2021 and enrolled some of our public housing authorities into what's now called INSPIRE, NSPIRE standards for conducting inspection. And this will include inspection of privately owned home landlords in the future. But INSPIRE has an enhanced technology, and also it has the reporting of self-inspection results. HUD plans to implement INSPIRE across the board in 2023, and I think this will be helpful to some of the landlord complaints that you've probably heard about. But I would ask everyone just to Google INSPIRE and become familiar with it. And again, this is a move by our secretary to make it more accessible. We are trying to break down the barriers, not create barriers to safe housing. But we do have to guarantee that our customers are in safe conditions.
That's fantastic to know. Just the actual fact that we can get those tools so easily now. And I was not aware of that. So I really appreciate that. I know, Ronnie, Reba's been sending me a couple texts. We're running short on time, and we have so many more questions we'd like to ask. I guess as way of a final question, because we have about 3 minutes left, how is HUD currently engaging in the local community beyond housing authorities to develop more safe, stable housing opportunities?
Well, we're doing a lot with home ownership. As I, again, mentioned in passing in my introductory statement, that HUD realizes that wealth building is also a key component of stabilizing communities and ensuring the future of some of our underserved citizens. So what has been implemented recently through our FHA program is that now they will look at your rental payment history as part of your credit score, which is so innovative, because before, if you weren't a homeowner and you had no other credit, then it was really difficult for you to get any type of financing. But now they're saying, well, if you've been a good renter for 10 years, if you paid your rent on time, then why not consider that? That goes to your character as to whether or not you're a good credit risk. So that's pretty cutting edge in the financing industry, and we're very proud of that. So those are some of the things that HUD is doing outside of just focusing on it creating housing. Also, HUD has demonstrated that wraparound services also build communities. So some of our wraparound services that we're now involved with address the issues of having daycare facilities, making sure that housing is connected with transportation hubs so that people who find employment can get to the employment. So we are encouraging developers, private developers, when they're building new residents around transportation hubs, to include an affordable housing piece in there. And we have seen that working in certain areas of the country already. Also, there's other programs we call Choice Neighborhoods. Choice Neighborhoods is basically a program where we go in and we assist in just changing an area. I'd like to brag that here in Chicago, we have such an area where not only did we go in with new housing, but we went in with economic development, we assisted small businesses, we addressed the transportation issue, and we just reconfigured the nature of the community, but we kept it affordable. So Choice Neighborhoods, again, I would encourage you to Google that, and that would give you a more idea of what HUD is doing outside of just bricks and mortar.
Yes, thank you. They're doing exciting things. Lucas County was part of the choice planning phase, so we're hopeful to move to the implementation phase.
Oh, yes, that's congratulations.
Yes, so it's very exciting. Well, I know we're coming short on time here, though. And I'll let Ronnie speak for a minute here to close things out, but I want to thank you so much for joining us in community today. Your insight has been wonderful. I'm leaving this having such a great feeling that HUD is going to be a very valuable partner in our work in Ohio moving forward. So I'm very grateful for you taking the time out to provide us some insights, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
And
Thank you.
I was just going to say, and I'll just add ditto to everything that Tom said. You have been fantastic. And remember my face, remember my name, because I will be in touch. We want to work with HUD in Ohio. So thank you.
Great. We are only as strong as our partners, and we view you as our partners. Thank you, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you so much. I just want to remind everybody that's on Zoom, in the Whova app, we'll have a 15-minute break here until 10:45. In the Whova app, when you select the session you want to attend, remember the room will open up about 2 minutes before the session starts. Just click on the green camera icon for that session, and you should be able to enter the session. We will be on break until 10:45, and get up, stretch, and again, thank you for all attending the opening session today.